How lucrative of a career is this, do you think, in India, being an author, being a writer?
No, nothing, not lucrative at all. I have to do other things like teaching, creative writing, or freelance work. Writing and creating or creative writing gives you what money can't buy. It gives you that deep level of understanding the world, a sense and semblance of the world, a certain clarity and peace.
Do you think it could be the heaviness of the life that leads to people not exploring comedy that much, maybe?
How much do we laugh in the day compared to how much we are sober or somber or thoughtful or even pained? How much are we amused in a day?
I think it's very less.
I feel that has a correlation to why we want catharsis as readers, because we don't permit ourselves to laugh. A comic hero or heroine's journey is different from a tragic or a drama hero and heroine's journey, in the fact that the comic hero or heroine is a delulu and they don't examine their lives as much. So they will believe the first thing they think about themselves, and they love that delusion. Haiku, we know it as a 3-line poetry, right? It's actually 3-line poetry is poetry, yes, but it's also 2 images juxtaposed. Let's say traffic snarl is one image. I miss the music of estuaries. Okay, now estuaries are very silent. Estuary is a sangam. It's a sound haiku, because we're talking of snarl, which if I just say traffic snarl, you're hearing it, right? When I say I miss the song of estuaries, I'm talking of the sangam wherein you do not hear a sound.
In today's grim world, do you think comedy in stories is just a distraction or a way to stay sane and see life more clearly? In this episode of Discovery of an Author Fiction, we sit down with Rochelle Potkar to discuss her book, The DaCosta Family. Rochelle is a prize-winning poet, author, and screenwriter based in Mumbai. Her long list of work includes her books 4 Degrees of Separation, Paper Asylum, Bombay Hangovers, and many more. She is an Iowa International Writing Program alumna. Her film scripts and short stories have received critical acclaim. She also teaches poetry at the Himalayan Writing Retreat. This was a great and fun-filled episode where Rochelle talks about her process of writing and creating unforgettable characters, importance of comedy, the financial realities of being an author in today's publishing world, her love for Japanese poetry forms haiku and haibun, and so much more. If you find this episode enjoyable, please do like and subscribe this channel, as this will help us bring more such interesting and wonderful conversations to you with your favorite authors. This is your host Utkarsha, and this is The Discovery of an Author. Hi Rochelle, welcome to The Discovery of an Author.
Thank you, Utkarsha. I'm so glad to be here.
We are so glad to have you here today with us, and we're really excited for this conversation. So should we?
Me too.
Yeah. So the DaCosta family. Here is our amazing copy. Yeah. So a story about family legacies, rivalry, relationships, and revenge. How far would you go to get what is yours, and what all are you willing to sacrifice on the way? This description might seem deceptively very heavy, but it's actually a light read infused with superb comedic elements. And it was such a fun and thrilling ride with so many unexpected twists and turns. It keeps you engaged throughout the story. In your own words, how would you describe this book and the story?
So this is such a vast question, and if I collect my thoughts, how did I come to this story? Right, like this one. So this story was always inside me. Okay, this story was incepted inside me from the time I was born, because this story is my family story from childhood. At least the beginning parts, the premise of being born and bred in a landlord's and lady's house, or the plot of land that is in between, or the house on one side and the tenants' quarters on one side, and the small town of Kalyan. This is where the premise or the setup is. So this was something that was incepted in me from the time I was born. In fact, I always think there is one place, poem or story minimum, one family story or poem minimum in every one of us. And if we are writers, we choose to write. If we are artists, we choose to depict it on in art. If we are filmmakers, in films. But there's always that one. So this story was always there in me, but it did not come out for the longest time because I didn't know I was going to be a storyteller for the longest time. And so when I was a storyteller, a poet, a writer, or later a screenwriter, I had written many stories, many poems, many screenplays, but they were not about my family. They were about, I feel we have different microcosms of observation and interface. For example, the family is one of them. Okay, and then you have your society, you have your schools and institutions, colleges, you have your towns and cities, and then you have the world. I always feel it's a I've said that many times in while talking about poetry. It is the concentric circles ever expanding from the smallest to the biggest. So I never thought this microcosm of small town Kalyan or this large Goan family would ever need to be storified, because I had come to Bombay, and Bombay had so many characters which filter through Bombay Hangovers, my collection of short stories. And I had a lot of poetry, being a woman in the city, in the world. So I had a lot of women centric poetry, or looking at the world through a woman's gaze. So I had a lot of other writing that I was exploring. I was finding my voice, finding my worldview, finding myself in that. So this story was there somewhere. You could almost think of it as in an ice age of sort, the seeds of it. And it wasn't, awakened for the longest time. I was doing many other kinds of writings and stories. And when I think it ripened enough, it started knocking on my so-called psyche to want to come out. And it didn't want to come out. The funny part is, it didn't want to come out as a literary fiction or a very serious drama kind of, intergenerational stories of, say, three daughter-in-laws and three son-in-laws or sons, or cousins and aunties and uncles. It didn't want to come out like that. It wanted to come out in a very whacked out, nutty way. And so I was very perturbed initially, because I was like, you better come out, because I have other stories to write. So you better come out. You want to get it out of your system. But it was like, no, it, it didn't want to come out in this way. It wanted to come out whacked out, nutty. And then I realized that my family was very nutty, was very, it gave me most of the laughter came from my family, because it was this large Goan joint family when I was like younger. Then later we moved to a nuclear family. So this large family that had so many characters. So I think my first interface with characters was my large family. And I think a lot of us Indians have joint families from where we come and go, and then form nuclear families, single person families. But we come from that joint family fulcrum and structure. So a lot of characters came from there, and they were all whacked out and nutty and crazy. Nobody was. They gave me a lot of laughs, to put it simply. So this story also said, how can we be serious? What's so serious about it? We don't want to give you, kitchen politics in the serious way. We want to give you everything funny. And then it was like, okay, you know what? Sometimes the writer or the creator is negotiating with their characters and stories. We may sound mad to the world, because it's like, whom are you talking to? You're talking to invisible air, but you're fighting with your characters, you're fighting with your story. You're saying, come out, yaar, because I have more stories to write. And this wanted to come out this way. And I was like, okay, if you're coming out this way, how about me exaggerating it in humor and in hasya rasa and making the most of it then? Then come out. Then let me take a dig at the Portuguese hangover that Goans have. Let me take a dig and have fun with the quirks and the traits that different people have. Let me have fun then. Let me just have fun with a pot-bellied Gaitonde. Let me have fun with his obsessions, with Jason, with his obsessions. Let me just have fun. So then I went all out. Then I pulled no stops. I had fun. And I think, Utkarsha, even in my 10th proofreading draft, when you are so tired of the story, because it's so technical,
Yeah.
you're just, reading it for small commas and full stops, and you're not really thinking about the content. Even there, if I stumbled upon a phrase, I would suddenly chuckle. And I was like, I think I really had fun with this book. I hope I have fun with other books writing them, but I had a lot of fun with this one. So yeah, that's how the story came about. It's a family story that's twisted completely into Portuguese mafia and Gully Ke Gunde and capos and dons and everything. Like, what have you?
So, Rochelle, you have an impressive body of work, but this is your first venture into comedy. And how was the writing process for comedy different from other genres?
So, I had read somewhere because while I was, transitioning from being a poet to
Mhm.
fiction, like, so I was a short fictionist earlier. Then I was into poetry for the longest time. Then I took to haiku and haibun writing, teaching as well. And then I moved to longer pieces of fiction, that is novel writing and screenplay writing. So when I was writing for screen, I read somewhere that a comic hero or heroine's journey is different from a tragic or a drama hero and heroine's journey, in the fact that the comic hero or heroine is a delulu. They don't know, uh, they're not self-aware, and they don't examine their lives as much. So they
Yeah.
will believe the first thing they think about themselves, and they love that delusion, and their motivation comes from that, and they roll on from that into their action. So I think there was that lens, and there was this lens of also the rasas, because I was learning a lot of rasa theory, the Navarasa theory in
Mhm.
screenwriting. And what I found as a poet when I was practicing, still practicing poetry, my latest book, which was Coins and Rivers, in that I had a lot of all moods of poetry, but I didn't have as much of hasya rasa or the comedic poetry or the wit in poetry. And I always loved the wit when I listened to it, say from Nizam Ezekiel's poems or Eunice D'Souza's poems. So I wondered, where does wit go? Why are not as many poets writing witty poetry?
Mhm.
Is it because we are all resisting and revolting and rebelling that there's so much of protest poetry, which should be there, which should have a place? But where is wit? So I was searching for that in my own voice, my own explorations. So I started writing some hasya poems, okay, which I call my Badmash poems, and they are there in the book Coins and Rivers. So I think that was also an extension, that the Badmashi was coming out, that Hasya Rasa. As a screenwriter and as a storyteller, by the time I reach this place, this story also wants to stubbornly be that comedic, and there you go. I explore the Hasya Rasa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be the heaviness of the life that leads to people not exploring comedy that much? Maybe because, the thing, what comes out of you in the form of writing or in any form of art is actually what maybe you're going through. It's so interesting the point that you're making that the people who write comedy, for them, like, what is that place from where they're, fetching that feeling?
Yeah. I feel that just look at a day, the cross section of a day.
Hmm.
How much do we laugh in the day compared to how much we are sober or somber
Yeah.
or thoughtful or even pained, reflecting, maybe
Hmm.
disturbed? How much are we amused in a day?
I think it's very less in
Yeah.
comparison.
So
Yeah.
you take one day,
Hmm.
of anyone's life, a cross section, the struggles they face, the troubles, the challenges, the
Hmm.
triumphs, the courage they need to come up to collect and do something for themselves. Similarly, take a week, take a month, take a year. Then you notice, how much did you laugh this year? uh, I'm talking of world events also, from the Gaza
Hmm.
genocide to whatever might be there
Yeah.
around, to plane crashes. So many tragedies keep happening. Good things also happen, but a lot of sober things are happening, things which
Hmm.
sober us down, things that make us, that move us in a dramatic way, not necessarily in a comedic way.
Hmm.
So I feel that has a correlation to why we want catharsis as readers in dramatic or drama and tragedy more than comedy, because we don't permit ourselves to laugh, and we feel laughing is fickle, laughing is so time pass, it's passe. But to be sad, yeah, it resonates more with our sadness. It resonates more with our search for meaning of life. But we forget that comedy can also give you meaning for life, but it will give you with laughter. Are we ready to afford and permit ourselves that? Because even when I was writing this book, or when I was finalizing this book, I was thinking, there's a genocide going on. Can I permit myself to still laugh? Or am I being insensitive? Am I being tone deaf? And I'm like, but when do we laugh? If we
Yeah.
are alive, we laugh. And it doesn't make us less empathetic. But you need to keep spaces for all the navarasas, because that is life. everything is life. And so I feel it's difficult to not just read comedy or keep space for comedy, but also write comedy, because there are so many pressing serious issues even in my own writing. So much of more serious stuff that I've written in poetry, or even my next book, which is a book around the garment and fashion industry, three women around the garment and fashion industry, and it's pretty serious, their lives, as I explore them. So I think there should be a place for all kinds of moods and tones, because we don't laugh as much. Yeah.
I think laughter makes it, and comedy makes it easier to like take upon us the rest of the things, the burden of the rest of the things, the rest
Yes,
of the
yes. And
responsibilities as well.
sometimes you can actually convey so much in comedy that you can't
Yeah,
convey straight faced, right? I mean to
absolutely.
say, the amount of things I have conveyed through the characters in this book, I could not get away with it being seriously written.
So this story is based in a fictional town near old time Bombay, and again we are mentioning Bombay instead of Mumbai because of the time, like the
Yeah.
time frame in which the story is set, and it's mainly centered around this Goan Catholic family. There's so much to unpack about Goan community and culture. Like there are so many Konkani songs that are mentioned, common phrases, mouth-watering dishes, and like different castes and communities that are mentioned and sprinkled throughout the story. So, talk to us about all of it, and what made you decide to, center the story around Goan culture, like around Goan culture, and what research went into it.
So as I mentioned, this was my family, the Goan community. And so when I lived in Kalyan in the 1990s, time moved backward, I felt. It didn't move forward, or it was at a stop still. And that small town feeling, I don't know whether you are from a small town,
Yeah, I've
or,
experienced that.
yeah,
Yes.
that feeling when nothing's happening. When is this going to happen? Where's the play button? Why is this on pause? So I would feel that all the time. I think I've always thought aspirationally that Mumbai is my promised land, and or Bombay is my promised land, and all my dreams are going to get fulfilled in Bombay. I'm going to be financially independent. I'm going to be beautiful in Bombay. I'm going to be free and wild in Bombay, and everything Bombay. The dream is Bombay. So although the small town of Kalyan was not too far away from Bombay, but it was still small town for me, 1990s, far away. And what I would observe is people. So I don't think I read as many books, Utkarsha, as I read people, because we had this lovely microcosm of this small town and all these people. And there is this poem called Knotted Inside Me in my um, poetry collection, 4 Degrees of Separation. That Knotted Inside Me poem is a place poem, as I call it, and it is about Kalyan, but telescoped when I reached Bombay. So when I reach Bombay and I look back at my small town, I telescope and see the small town, and I can caricature it or I can sketch it. Because you can't do it when you're inside the place. You do it
Yeah.
when you're outside, because there's a certain wisdom and evolution that takes place. But having said that, I grew up in a community, very close knit community of cosmopolitan, yes, but Goan Catholic. There were Anglo Indians and there were Sindhis because they came from Ulhasnagar. So I think these were the three major communities. Of course, there were the Parsis, there were the Muslims, there were all mixes of every Indian. But if I only focused on these communities, because the book, how big could the book get? So I focused only on this one, and I think I had a lot of fodder because so many of these characters are, alchemized from real people. And of course, because I became a screenwriter, I was very alert to the dramatic element. Otherwise, I could have written a documentary kind of, or, like a memoir. Why does this become fiction is because as a screenwriter, I was hungry to dramatize it, to understand character traits and motives, to understand where are they going, where are they coming from, why are they doing this, what will they do now. So I have employed a lot of those tenets of storytelling, come from screen, which may come from novel or not, because novels require more interiority. And at the same time, as comic novel writing, you don't have to go many levels deep. You can stop at level 3, level 4, because that's enough for the comedy. But yes, you can go deeper in dramatic stories. So yeah, I think I had a lot of that fodder, and it was a very natural, so I didn't have to research too much.
Mhm.
Everything was around me. This was about my community, and it was about the Goan centricity. Like, I think in those days, people just lived to take a pilgrimage to Mount Mary's fair in Bombay, come to Chira Bazaar, Crawford Market in Bombay, or then go to Goa. So between that happened life, death, marriage, divorces, children growing up, old age, everything. Between going to Goa, going to Bombay, going to Goa, going to Bombay. So there was this also the simplicity that life provided, because I'm also talking of a middle class kind of setup.
Yeah.
Because if I'm talking the small town was middle class, but then you have here a little hierarchy of the wealthier and the tenants. But generally it was a less technology infiltrated small town,
Mhm.
because internet came later. Like, I show one of the characters who has a laptop which is a clunky laptop, because you have those. So
Yeah.
internet is yet to come into that world. So we're talking of that world before that, when it was more on human relationships, dynamics, politics. Now it is like whatever human relation, but there's a screen in between. There's so much of screen in between us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of everything came from there. So I didn't have to, think much, and also about the food and its associations. You're not the only one who said this important phrase, mouth watering. I got this. I got this many times, and first I was very struck, because I would suddenly, somebody saying that we were hungry while reading your book. And I was like, why are you hungry? And that was the first time I was like, no, because you mentioned so many recipes and how they are
Mhm.
cooked. So, of course, it was kitchen politics, it was cultural motifs and signifiers. It was also the dynamics in the family politics, because the men are deciding what food is going to be cooked.
Mm.
The men are saying, don't cook Anglo Indian, cook Goan, because they are kind of dominating that space, which is supposed to be women's spaces. But it was also about the fact that in my family, we were professional eaters, in the sense that if we had a family gathering, it would be like you eat for hours on end. And now when I think of it, I'm like, what? Because now you have calories, and you have basic metabolic rates, and you
Yeah.
have all those Instagram fitness things going on. And you were like, what were we even doing? Because we would come at 12, let's say, and start with one course, and then by 5 you finish the dessert, and you're just talking and just yapping, and you have children here and something going on and
Yeah.
merrymaking, and you're like, were we eating for like so many hours? But then, so food was a very important part of family and association, culture
Mm.
and identity. So it was easy to employ that in the background of the characters when they are working, the politics of it. So things did help me, like everything helped me make the story, or the curry, let me say.
Did you grew up like hearing all those Konkani songs, the lyrics for which you have mentioned in between the scenes?
Oh yes, yes. Not just that, but the fados, the mandos, the hymns, other kinds of country music, every
Yeah.
kind, like like all the crazy romantic Konkani songs, which is always about mog, 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 love, love, love. Everything is about mog. But yes, yes, a lot of that. And I think my family was also very simple, in the sense that today, when I think about it, when I look at families as setups,
Hmm.
I don't see that my family dining table conversations were ever on politics. No one ever discussed politics. They
Yeah.
discussed food. They discussed babies. They discussed family fun, or some picnic, or some simple thing.
Yeah.
So they were simpletons. Like today, I find, how do you say, like some dining room discussions so full of politics and so full of world affairs. And my family was not like that. I even remember my uncle once laugh and say, many years ago, many years ago, we were Hindus, but now we're Catholics. Ha 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 ha. Ha. It was just that. It was like everything was ha ha ha. So there was nothing which was very serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so it did come from that family, which you purchased laughter. You know, you just purchase laughter, and then you come into the world and get shocked, because hey, it's not all hunky dory.
Yeah.
It's a
Absolutely.
lot of stuff going on. I think when I came to Bombay, I had that kind of a culture shock of sorts, because there were so many things going on in Bombay. In
Hmm.
fact, my last lines of Knotted Inside Me read that, there was only so much going on in the town. But when I came to the city, the city multiplied around me 1,000 times. Because what was one incident in a town is so
Yeah.
much in the city, and you face a plurality of complexities,
Hmm.
and then you're like, okay, bachpan is over, bachpan khatam. Now wake up.
There are some really unique elements and characters in this book. For example, we have a character who is obsessed with the dead. His ritual of like preparing the dead bodies before burial, and the way he respectfully speaks of them as if he finds more connection with them than with the living. And then, as you mentioned, Kai Thornday, we have this really underappreciated but persistent inspector who has very strong opinions about singlehood, about marriage, about family, and he's not this. He does not believe in this cookie cutter family picture, and he's like really rebellious against that whole concept, which honestly, again, I did find a bit relatable sometimes.
So
And
glad.
then we have the scene where the lady of the house is holding a seance in the house, and there's so many other like such incidents and elements and characters. As you already mentioned that a lot of it came from people around you, from your family, from observing. But still, like, what is the inspiration that goes behind creating such unique characters and in the world building for a story, and how much of it comes from observing people and incidents around you, and how much of it is like pure imagination that you're building up?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think so. Like in the storytelling, a lot of it, at least for this book, when
Hmm.
I'm writing some other stories and books, it depends on what research I need to do. Like I'm working on a thriller novel based in Kunur, so I need to know specifically about that place because I'm not from that place.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it will require a lot more research. Whereas here, because everything was ready made, it was from my childhood characters that not only did you notice in your childhood, but as you grew up and you went back to your small town, you saw them at different life stages. So they were almost living characters, and you're connecting the dots. You're like, okay, now they've grown this old, or now their daughter has succeeded to that level, or that son has married this person, or whatever might be the milestones. So you're seeing it in real life, and you don't know it's going to be part one day of your characters and your books, but you're observing these people, yeah, from like their whole life trajectories. So I think a lot of it didn't require research, but it definitely required assimilation and alchemy, because you need to put together characters. So you don't have that character work you need to do, which is for other stories, but you definitely needed to put them in a shape and size that will work for the plot or the story, because you're telling a story. Finally, it's not a memoir, or it's not just documentary. So I think for me, I looked a lot at archetypes, because when I studied the archetypes of characters in screenplay, I felt that so many of these characters lend themselves to that. Like Jason and Pedro are completely opposite in a way. One person is capitalizing from life, one person is capitalizing from death. Now, life and death are yin and yang. So, both these brothers are doing something similarly, but we may give more credence to a person who's closer to death, because we think it is more spiritual, because death means detachment. But death can also be business. Death can be equally capitalized upon, and you have so many ways in which it is capitalized upon. And you have a life. So similarly, I felt other archetypes like a Rita DaCosta, okay, and her motive for revenge, or a Maggie who is of another generation. So Rita is in this, let's say, in this vicious circle or cycle of greed. Maybe the other elders of DaCosta and the Josephs are equally into this vicious cycle of power, wars, and greed. But you also have Maggie, who is juxtaposing it in another generation, who will break the cycle perhaps. Even if she wants the power, she will break it, and she will follow different ways of justice. She doesn't believe in the same thing, like grab what you can, cheat when you can. She perhaps believes, no, everyone should get equal, but she still wants power. She still want to be the Don. She says that in the end, if I was the
Yeah.
Don, I'm going to be. So she does have that power ambition, but it changes. So I think I looked at the archetypal yin and yangs of characters as they made up for the story. So for me, it's like a whole circle, and each character is like an arc. and they're placed maybe not exactly mathematically across,
Hmm.
but you just find that this character is totally opposite to this one, and they're brothers, or this one is totally opposite to this one, and their mother-in-law, daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
All look, they're two sister-in-laws, but they're so different. Or are they the same actually? Underneath, are they the same?
Mhm.
So you start seeing them that way. But I think that was what I definitely looked at. This character work was the easiest, I tell you. I don't think I'm going to have such easy character work anymore, because Bombay Hangovers had some characters that were easy, but I had to still study them, remember to note and reference why I what I like about them.
Hmm.
But I think sometimes new work wherein you're not relying on the reservoir of old family and all
Hmm.
requires a lot more, because you need to think and capture so much. But I must tell you something, Utkarsha. I think by now, being storytellers for so long, I have formed this incorrigible habit of just taking in characters. You just drink them up. Whether you like people all the time or you don't like people, you just are so alert and receptive to people. You observe the little things they do, how they wear their saris, for example, or how they walk, or what did they say, why did they say this phrase and not that phrase, or why did they write this email in this way and not that way. So you're always observing.
Yeah.
So somewhere I think a character work is always, there are always little characters being formed, I think, in a storyteller's mind. But this was easy because it was already there, inherited, I would say.
What is one thing that you wish that the readers will take away from this book?
Oh, well, readers being so crazy and unpredictable. I hope they take the right things from this book, which is all wrong, which is absolutely wrong. Like somebody said, it was irreverent. I hope they take the irreverence out. So I would love, as a storyteller or a writer, to say the reader should take this from the book. But the readers take something else only. They always catch the bull by the tail, or they catch the bull by the horns. Okay, you have to just put risk your story out there to the world.
Yeah.
Most of the readers and the reviewers have taken it very beautifully, because they got the comedy. So if you get the comedy, if you've signed up for the sit down comedy that this book is, you get it. And if you get it, then of course, different readers resonate differently with parts of the story, parts of
Yeah.
different characters and events. And only I think one or two readers came by thinking it would be drama, and they were not happy because they were made to laugh and they didn't want to laugh.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, I cannot do nothing if you do not permit yourselves to laugh.
Similarly, it happens with the movies as well. You go with one expect like you're having this
Yes,
preconceived
yes,
notion that okay, the movie is supposed to be this, and then
right.
it turns out to be something really
Yeah.
completely opposite of it.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I like those readers better who said that, see, we were reading a lot of grim, sober stuff,
Yeah.
and we were feeling more and more grim with the world,
Hmm.
because they're consuming grimness and watching grimness, and then you just read this book in one corner, laugh out loud, and you're happy. Okay,
Yeah.
there was something else written. So I resonate more with those readers, because I think they are speaking the basic truth.
Right.
Yeah, the full truth. Otherwise, when so a reader or two comes and say that, no, 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 this didn't, like, this is not deep enough. I'm like, boss, it's very deep, but you have to laugh a lot to get to that depth, because it's comedy doesn't have a depth in a way like literary
Yeah.
fiction has, drama has,
Yeah.
tragedy has. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, but surprisingly, it does because if we talk about black comedy, like if we talk about this book, where there are light and dark elements, like there in the book, like present throughout the book, or even if we talk about some series as well, like suppose we talk about White Lotus or something, which are dealing with dark comedy. So the topic is really heavy, but it has been the comedy is used to highlight that, so you don't feel heavy with it, but you are
correct,
still getting something. Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
So that I'm saying, that is the
yeah.
readers, ripening of that, uh, how
Yeah,
do you say, stance.
yeah, yeah.
Like when you're reading, what are you expecting?
Hmm.
If you're expecting a multi-generational, grim, sober saga, you're not going to get that. You're going to get something whacked out. You're going to get something different. Yeah, different. Let's say that. You unexpected.
So, Roshelle, a writer puts so much effort into working on a project. from the inception of the idea to research to building characters, plot, preparing the first draft, reworking on it continuously. As you mentioned that by the 10th draft, like so you have already worked on so many drafts of it. So do you think that like a writer's work end with this, like with this work, or how important do you think is the marketing aspect of your work so that it could reach a wider audience?
Yeah, so I think that because some of my ideas have dual citizenships, I always call them, because they are conceptualized as, let's say, a novel. But after a while, I wonder, hey, the screenwriter in me is like, hey, can I make this into the dynamism of screen? Can I at least try screenplay out? And how does novel writing and screenplay of the same story go? Is that a screenplay is very dynamic. You can't waste time showing the swaying of the coconut trees for one page and talking of how the river gurgled and the birds flew and the fronds flopped, flipped and flopped, or I don't know, the bee buzzed. You don't have time for that. It's just one short uh, line, perhaps,
Hmm.
nature, okay, or natural beauty or whatever, sunset, that's it. And then you move to dialogue, action, character. So I feel there's a certain dynamism in screenwriting and a drama that pulls out a lot of dialogue and liveliness in characters, which when you come to, if you were novelizing the same story, it goes to a lot of deep monologue and interiority, and a lot of inner drama. So some of my ideas come like that, like dual citizens, because maybe I like writing in both these forms. When I was a poet, I used to also write stories in poetry. So I remember there was a very famous Hindi poet, Manglesh Dabral, who's no more. He had once told me that you're one of the few poets who can write stories so beautifully in lyrical poetry. Not everyone can do that. So I think I was always somewhere a mixed genre, cross genre kind of a person, mixed art forms. So what happens is when I come to some stories, they want to be both novels and screenplays, but independent of each other. So if you don't see this on screen, you will see this in the book, which is still a story shared with the world. And if you don't see this in a book, or you don't happen to read it and you see it on screen, it's not exactly an identical twin. It's its own self. So for me, this was also a screenplay in 2023 when it was a selection at the top 30 book to box office Goa Film Bazaar, NFDC. And there they were discussing whether this could be a web series, this could be a feature length. Would it lose its momentum if it is a web series? Should it be tight as a feature? We were discussing this in Goa. They were thinking of not having this in Kalyan, but in Goa. A lot of charcha happened around it. But films, I think, take money. They take producers to really consolidate a project with putting money. And money means ROI immediately. So a book is beautiful in the sense that you're in control as a writer from head to toe. So no matter the amount of proofreading drafts I had to do, or the outlining or the characterization, when it came to writing the novel, there was a certain liberation I felt, because there's nobody else. You are the director, you're the actor, you're the character, you're the sunlight, you're the rain, you're the clouds, you're the frogs, you're the bricks, you're everything in that story. You're the pace, you're the editor. So imagine being every department.
Hmm.
And I think that full control, I always felt the fear that had this become anything else, would it lose something? Would it gain something, but would it lose something? Because there'll be another person. And maybe they will enrich everything, but they'll change something.
Hmm.
Even enrichment
Yeah.
is changed, right? It may be something, or they may say, oh, no, let's localize this. Like I remember one of the directors saying, Apollina is too big a word. Let's make it a simpler Catholic word, Catholic name. So it already starts. And of course, you'll say, no, yaar, I mean, Apollina is not that bad. You have to debate a little bit. You have to discuss a little bit. But I'm saying that already starts. Whereas in this book, nothing changes it. So I think I had that autonomy, which I think I would like, whether all my books become, dual products or not. All might not become novels and screenplays. But if I want to do that, I think I enjoy the novel better because it's fully in your control. For good or for worse, okay? It's in yours. Head to toe, it's yours.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about the marketing aspect, do you like only consider like the book, or like turning it into a screenplay to be one part of it, or do you like associate any other parts
I
also
no,
with? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for marketing, I think just generally reading the book, because screenplay is, a very, getting this on screen is a very off chance, because as I said, you need like, even for this project, it's happening in one Burgundy house. So if you ask about the execution or the budget, it might be just a 2.5 cr project. But will anyone invest 2.5 cr? They will ask for what is the return on investment, because this is a small community. See, this is not a Punjabi film, which is I think the massive amount of people would see a Punjabi film. This is a Christian or a Catholic Goan community film. Of course, there were films like Finding Fanny and all, but it's a niche film that you would
Yeah.
have to localize, Indianize, bring at a gangplank where everyone can understand it and not feel alien, like how Archie's. They keep saying, talking about Archie's, and then, but I keep talking about Finding Fanny, and then, so we keep doing that. But I'm saying, so that takes a lot of time. So I don't feel the marketing of a book could be based on its film, because, or its scripting, because that is a long shot. Okay, but I feel the marketing of a book is the story itself, is the reading of the book. So if I would want to promote a book, I would just read a paragraph, an interesting paragraph or an interesting character event, and that's the easiest way to do. I think every other promotional interface, like festivals, media coverage, interviews. Like today, there was an interview coverage in midday of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think all these things contribute. But finally, it is just, I think I want to have this old world thought ki just reading one paragraph or one little excerpt should be enough. If your story is good enough, that should be enough. Because how much can you do? How much can you do? From which summit can you stand and, say, this is the book out, you have to do that. But how much can you do it? You can't do it. I feel sometimes, I believe in this. I don't know whether it's completely a Delulu's belief or dream, but I believe that you make sugar, the ants will come. Yeah, ants don't have to be advertised and said, "Ki, come this sugar there." They come. They will eventually come. If something is good, they'll turn up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I think most of the artists or the writers or anyone in the creative field would kind of resonate with this, because especially the ones who are actually creating something, because they put all their effort into working on that project, but they're not really, I think, as you said, that if the work is good, they're always of the opinion that people should get attracted by that. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, because
yeah.
I remember that, my poetry, I was would always think, okay, what is the time frame of selling a poetry book? Is it 1 year in which you notice how many copies got sold? But I remember I had gone to promote this book in Dog Years, Goa, just last month. And we were talking about the characters. And by the way, there was a real DaCosta family that came, okay, to check what I wrote about them.
That's interesting.
So cute, yeah. And at another book launch, there was the two women in front. One was Rita and one was DaCosta. So I was like, oh my God, this is getting as weird.
Yeah.
But in that book launch, there was one person in the audience who was talking about my poem called Toys of Chitrakut, which was a poem on how the toy maker is also a toy in a capitalistic society. So it was called the Toys of Chitrakut. It was a long poem. And she remembered that poem, and resonating with that, she spoke about this book. And we suddenly started speaking about the world order, capitalism, global supply chain, because my next book is on fashion and the garment industry. And so I realized that a writer may not be exactly, or your stories may not exactly be discovered in real time in the zeitgeist. Sometimes in the zeitgeist, but sometimes they might be discovered 5 years after the book is out, 10 years, who knows, posthumous. Sometimes I think about posthumous productions and publications. Who knows when is a story incepted into your head, written, shared with the world, and discovered by the world. I think all the time frames are so different. It's very Nolan-esque.
Yeah.
So all you can do as a writer is, or a storyteller is, you write your stories, share them, and when they have to be read and discovered, they will be, hoping that there are enough readers. See, that's another thing I get worried about, that readership is falling, and I hope it's not falling too much. A little bit here and there. I understand readers going to watch more passive streaming and OTTs. But are they really stopping to read? I think there's a good flourishing reader community.
Hmm.
But somewhere I also fear. I'm like, are the readers getting less by any chance? What do you think? Are they getting less, or they're
I think there was a dip at some point, but I think now it's gradually increasing. It's back again, and more of it could also be because of Instagram and other platforms. Because yeah, there's this term I don't remember. Is it something called aesthetic reading or something where like people are clicking pictures of people reading somewhere in the subway or somewhere,
right?
yeah, that is. But yeah, I think in general, gradually it is increasing again. Like,
That's good news, because
yeah.
sometimes it does take a little dip, and then you'll suddenly see a bookshop or a library close down, and then you're like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
then I think sometimes as a storyteller, you are eternal.
Hmm.
Your technology might change. You will
Hmm.
tell a story maybe through films or
Hmm.
through AV or through micro dramas or suddenly through small haiku, or graffiti on the wall. But a storyteller also metamorphoses in technology and time.
Yeah.
As long as there are readers, I think we are good. But I think, somewhere deep and far away, the truth is that we are so curious as human beings to consume stories. We cannot live without stories, because
Hmm.
stories help us transform, or they give us catharsis. So I feel the reader will always be there in some shape or size, and the writer will also always be there. The and receiving will not change
Yeah. Yeah.
in its
Absolutely.
base, a basic
Hmm.
fulcrum. It might.
Absolutely. Because either you read to escape reality or you read to understand reality. Like either
Yeah.
way, like you need stories in your life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think human beings can without stories. You just feel so hungry, bored, and lonely. And the moment you have a story,
Yeah.
whether you're writing one, because I think as a writer, the first escape for me is the reader, right? I'm the first reader who
Hmm.
escapes from the story. And then comes the other people. So I even think, how much have I escaped through the story world? If I have escaped, I know, it's like a chef cooking something delicious.
Yeah.
Again, I come to food. But if you cook something delicious, you taste it and you're like, oh wow, then you're sure someone's going to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. How lucrative of a career is this, do you think, in India, being an author, being a writer, from your personal point of view?
oh, Utkarsha, this is such a powerful, self-reflecting question and a dangerous question. Explosive. No, no, no. I did not find, writing fiction, writing poetry, writing novels, even writing screenplays lucrative up until now.
Hmm.
So I think I'm only doing dan dharm to the universe. Whatever the universe has given me as ideas, I'm just doing dan dharm. No, nothing, not lucrative at all. I have to do other things like teaching,
Hmm.
creative writing, or freelance work, or anything else to get, I can't say even pay my rent, but get by, scratch by.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that writing has not only helped me evolve and become a new person with every story and every poem,
Hmm.
but I also feel writing and creating, or creative writing, gives you what money can't buy. It gives you that deep level of understanding the world, a sense and semblance of the world, a certain clarity and peace. I
Hmm.
don't think I need a therapist. I would
Absolutely.
have
Yeah. Yeah.
needed, I would have needed, but these story worlds and characters are enough for me.
I mean, anyway, the first thing that the therapist recommend is journaling. So, like, you're putting your thoughts into words. So, you're
Absolutely.
already
And I'm
doing
putting,
that.
yeah, and I'm doing, in this one, I did it funnily with Jason and his grave digging, and Guy Tonde with his
Yeah.
chapel obsession. So it's done. So, yeah. So I think I get a lot of clarity as a writer, as a bonus,
Hmm.
just by writing poetry, or assembling a story and finding meaning. And you grow through a story. Sometimes you evolve through every poem you write, or every haibun you write. You discover a little bit more about life, human beings around you, yourself. Self-awareness is also a goal, not always self-actualization, but self-awareness. We are
Hmm.
all on a path of self-discovery. So that definitely writing gives. But no, unfortunately, no rent payments, no school fees payments, nothing like that. I think even writers who have sold a lot of books say they can't leave their day jobs.
Yeah.
Very few can, very few. I think 1% of the writers in the world can live off writing.
Yeah, yeah.
They are the fortunate few.
Maybe George R. R. Martin or J.K.
Yeah,
Rowling.
yeah. Not, I have not heard of even very famous writers. Very few of them away from their day jobs.
Hmm. It's sad, but it's true, I guess. Like not every amazing, wonderful book gets turned into something, from which you can make money. And
Yeah.
like if you even talk about the writers of the past, so many of them actually died in poverty without,
Yes.
and people now actually considering their work as classics and putting them on
True.
pedestals, but in
And
their
that feels so sad, like Emily
yeah,
Dickinson and all.
yeah,
And I feel even script writing, you feel that sometimes a book, if it is adapted into a screenplay, that
hmm,
might fetch money. But I think sometimes even the film industry is going through terrible troughs, dips, wherein the budgets get so little
yeah.
that you can't really think of getting anything from there, like
Hmm.
for the book. No, sometimes it just goes through tremendous dips and low budgets as low as 1 CR for the entire film.
Oh,
Yeah, which is like real tight.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
of course, I think this was the biggest word I learned: B for budget, because imagination has no budget. Okay, and when you're a novelist, you have no budget. Your characters can be dressed with every finery in the world. You can have the settings of anything in the world you want. It's only when you came to the film world, you're like, first thing is like they would say, your stories are very beautiful, but the budget is out of a budget. And I would be like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, what do I do with an imagination that doesn't think of budgets? So that was one very big surprise I had. Okay,
Hmm.
even till today, I'll get these things that, oh, this story is beautiful. We would have jumped on it, but we will need some international finance for this one.
You're an author, a screenplay writer, a mentor holding workshops, a student winning grants and fellowships, and like continuously honing her skills. You've done so much, and like you continue to do so. Talk to us about your journey.
Well, the confession is that from the outside it seems like a lot, but for me it seems like very little. You know, I think that also comes from the fact that
Is that the
see,
imposter syndrome?
no, it's not the imposter syndrome. I think it's more like knowing that you have more than 80% of unrealized potential inside you. So I feel that ये तो सिर्फ 20% है. बाकी बहुत कुछ, when will I do the rest, I have so many stories more to tell and so many things more. But friends do say, they say, no, you've done a lot. I'm like, Arey, but I have a lot more. You don't know how much I have inside. I think it's also one way of each person to do their SWOT analysis of knowing, like how much potential you really have, what all do you have inside you, and how can that come out. I think once you know that, you know exactly where you stand. I think whatever little that I have achieved is because of being curious and being innately not impatient, but I cannot be without work. That's one thing I can't do. I think work for me, writing or teaching or whatever work I do, editing, reviewing, anything that I do, is a part of my addiction and therapy. Both things. Okay, so I can't be, you can see me of course holidaying on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's not like I can't do nothingness and be just being, but the rest of it is I need to be, in some project, writing some article, doing something. I can't be idle, so I wish I could be. There was a time when I was not a very good holiday maker. I would even take work on holidays, and then I had to tell myself, stop it here. You need to stop somewhere. So I think curiosity and that constant need to, I don't know whether this is the industriousness that Bombay gives you, because I wonder where's the Goan in me, who should be susegad and laid back, and who should just sit on a hammock and say, life is life, stop, enough. Where are you going? It's a circle. I don't know where that philosopher is. It's always the buzzing bee or the busy ant in me that's like, chalo chalo ye karte hain, chalo chalo, let's do that, let's do this. Then I'm now compulsorily, I switch off on Saturday, Sundays. I'm like,
Hmm.
enough. Now, play with your pet or just do nothing.
Mhm.
Just stare, just wool gather, as I call it.
Yeah.
Just wool gather, just dream out of space. But very soon the mind is already a new characters come, a new setting is come. I'm like, कीड़े हैं.
But how did this journey begin? Like, if you think about it, like, what were your first memories around maybe books or writing? Yeah.
So as I said, I was not a avid reader as much as a reader of people. Okay, so I think people were my first library when I was young, and I think a lot of observations came. I didn't even know I had observations or dreaming skills. This I know in retrospect. Once I became a writer, I started thinking, "Arey, how the hell did I become a writer? How did I become a poet? कहाँ से आया ये सब?" Because I didn't do what others did. They went to literature school. Some went to MFA programs. Some were writing poetry and publishing at the age of 9. Somebody, even if somebody told me they were publishing when they were in their mother's womb, I would believe it, because I didn't do any of this. So this was like my quarter life detour, from corporate life. When I was 26, I took a detour. So for me, for the longest time, I didn't know I was going to be a writer or poet. So I had to ask myself, from where the hell did this come? Why did you become a storyteller and poet? And that too, a compulsive one who just needs to write, doesn't even care as much as kitna publish hota hai, kitna screen pe aata hai ya page pe aata hai. You need to write. So from where did this come? And then I think it is the observations. I might have had a lot of this dreamy observations of just osmosis, as they say, drinking people inhale the world and exhaling it. Then okay, in on paper. So that I think was definitely there. There's another thing which I feel is about sensoria. I'm very sensitive to the five senses and how you take in the world from your five senses, whether it could be visually dominating sometimes through color or light or sound, smell, touch. The same things what we always say, na, keep your five senses open. I think those were always open to take in the world. And then when you exhale in this way in your writing. Investment in craft was a different issue. That happened when I became a writer, but I'm talking of earlier. So earlier, my microcosms were the small town, the family, the school, the church. Then Bombay was a big macrocosm. The world, other cities that I lived in, people that came into my life and went, from different walks of life. So I think a lot of this, but I think there was one turning point when I was 26 and I was in the corporate world, and I had only read Sidney Sheldon, Nancy Drews, and Hardy Boys. I'd read genre fiction. I had no clue about literature, literary fiction. I was not a reader till 26. I'd only gone to a writer's circle at British Council Library. They had a writer's circle
Mhm.
for a year, and I would go to write short stories, and all were bad short stories. Huh? They were just assembled. Some likne ke liye lik liya types of short stories. They didn't have any thesis in them or any real core, but I would write and I would enjoy that. And one fine day, I felt like I was trapped in this gray box. Everything was going right about my job, about my subordinates and my bosses and salaries and work. And I just felt I am in the wrong place. It's a dead end. And I had to sit and introspect. That was the first time I introspected. Ki, what do you want to do then? If you just feel it's a dead end, your life is over. It must be my quarter life crisis, but I didn't know it then. I was like, what do you want to do? What do you like? And I liked only one thing, going once a month to the British Council Library Writers Group and sharing your short stories and getting critiques. We all critiqued each other. And I said, that's the only thing I like to do. And I was like, do you want to become a writer then? Because that's crazy. But from there it started actually. I jumped boat. I asked my family, and of course they had different middle class
Mhm.
questions. What about the salary? What about this? What about that? What about your education? I was an MBA. I was a postgrad in advertising. What about that? So lots of things, but eventually the opinion was that you have one life. If you want to do something, jump. And I jumped, and I was facing a large ocean, and I was like, how do I cartograph this? Because there's no blueprint for being a writer or a poet. You just find your way as you find your worldview and your voice. You just find your way. Okay, you grow up in the dark, but you make a map for yourself. It's a blueprint that it's yours. And that's what I did. And I think I now know that I'm a creative serial entrepreneur, because every 5 years I need to jump. So I'll do poetry for this amount of time, and I'll do it obsessively and madly. Like I did Haibun for a while, and I teach Haibun at Himalayan Writing Retreat. I also got it on the syllabi of St. Xavier's College and Wilson College. So I'll go mad and obsessed about a form, and then I'll just jump to another form, short stories maybe, and then I'll just jump to screenplays. and then I'll just jump to something from scratch. So suddenly I remember one day, Utkarsha, I was actually teaching in one Zoom call. The moment that Zoom call ended, I was a student somewhere. So that always, like, it keeps your ego very small because you're always learning, and you just don't know what you'll do in the next 5 years. I have no clue what I'll do. I think I might just become a speaker, a, speaking on themes. I don't know what I'll do. Every 5 years, I need to jump. So, yeah. And I have ended up now even teaching university professors Haibun, okay? So I never ask them their introductions before I teach, because some of them say we are professors, and I'm like, no, this is the last thing you want to know. You're teaching professors. But I have taught at, I've been on syllabi boards. I've taught at University of Iowa at the summer programs. And there were those places which from Kalyan, like I would want to be a collegian in St. Xavier's. So I never got to be a collegian in St. Xavier's because it was so far from Kalyan by train. But I definitely am on the board, and I'm also a teacher, guest lecturer. So I feel somewhere life gives you what you want, but in a different shape. You may want to be a student there, but it'll let you be a teacher there. So it gives it to you back. But I think, I think it was a very, very surprising journey, like with no warnings. Sometimes I think life is better that way, with no warnings. And it surprises you more than you could have scripted for yourself, a surprise. And I met some, I used to always have this at the back of my mind that I started late being a writer. And also, I'm not a literature student. I'm a commerce grad. I'm an MBA in marketing. I'm an postcard and advertising, but not a literature student. But I did meet some professors who said that we were literature students. We wrote poetry, but we gave up because we came up against the giants, literary giants, and we were so dwarfed that we couldn't write. After some time, we just felt what were we writing? And I didn't have to think about that. I was the biggest giant I came across. So I also had that kind of, that gumption, because it was a Delulu's gumption. You don't know any other writer, no poet. You just start writing and belting out. Because you feel, मैं ही सबसे बड़ी हूँ. That helps a lot. That helps a lot. Being a Delulu in the initial stages helps a lot. Because you can just unleash without any burden of any kind. Yeah.
Absolutely. I always say this, that there are two times when you'll do really good in exams. One when you know everything, one when you don't know anything.
Yeah, you shouldn't know too much, okay?
Yeah.
Too much. It kind of impedes that. Yeah. You should know just little.
Yeah. So, Roshelle, as a writer, one tends to read a wide variety of work, for pleasure or for research purposes. Who are some of your biggest inspirations when it comes to writing? And do you ever compare your work to your contemporaries or non-contemporaries?
Yeah. So I think my biggest, so I'll definitely say Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things changed, introduced me to literary fiction and pivoted me into literature or writing, because that's when I was also facing that crisis, that gray box crisis. So I think that definitely, Kafka on the Shore is another book by Haruki Murakami, because I read it at a time when I was so new to this kind of writing that it stays with you, because magic realism stays with you, surrealism stays with you.
Yeah.
And I even teach magic realism in universities of Iowa summer programs, because I feel what a beautiful premise when you say that whatever you're writing in this story world may be magical outside, but it is the normal story world. Now, how beautiful could that get? Because make a wish, say anything like, I wish this would be. You tell me, any wish.
I wish I would own a bookshop.
Okay. And then in this world, you own 10 bookshops.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe those books fly and reach the reader's lap. So the reader doesn't discover the books discover the readers.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And there you suddenly have a surreal world
Yeah.
where you can build a story around it.
Hmm.
Then, of course, you decide whether you want to be the heroine, where's the conflict, where's the obstacle, who's the antagonist, and you have something. So I feel that book, Haruki Murakami's, definitely. And there was a lot of, I read a lot of literature. So when I became a writer, because I had to catch up with a lot of stuff going on. I had to understand not just my worldview and voice, but what did others write? How did they write on love and this and that? So uh, a lot of other writers, but not anyone that became a big favorite. Arundhati Roy still, no matter what she writes, that language is just beautiful. The way she writes is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like all genres. That's another thing with me. Not just all rasas, but all genres. Yeah.
So, and like, if you like, did you ever compare your work with any of your?
Ah,
Yeah.
so, there were two ways in which I didn't really compare, because I think I became so surprisingly and suddenly a writer and a poet that I only knew when something was good, like you heard it on stage and you knew, okay, this is real good. Or you read something and you know that this is real good. Or you're like, nahi, isme baat nahi hai yaar. Or this is just written for the sake of it. Or this is just language embellishment, but there's no real crux in it. Or this is so simple but so beautiful and spot. So you did become a discerning reader, but I don't think I could compare myself to any contemporaries, because uh, we have so much of rich talent, and not just in one language like English, but translated language, both prose and poetry. But it was no, I don't think I was always part of a forest of birds song, as I would call it. Like I was a part of this beautiful, talented bunch of writers and poets, and I felt very excited about it. Um, so I didn't, but definitely I must tell you one secret. Sometimes I would look at the worst poets, okay, and I would think, if they can do it with such confidence, I'll also go and do it. ये तो कर ही लेते हैं. So I would definitely draw a lot of inspiration from rubbish poets who would, just go and do their thing, man. And they were delulus, okay? They thought, क्या लिखा है यार? So I would be like, तू कर सकता तो I'll also do it. So definitely that inspiration happened.
You also practice and promote Japanese short poetry form Haibun, as you mentioned earlier. Like, but that is so fascinating. Tell us more about it.
So see, I can give you a whole 3 hour or 10 hour lecture also on it. Because
Yeah.
I workshop people to some level that some of them even write books, okay? They write a whole Haibun book,
Oh, that's nice.
publishable book, okay? But I'll
Interesting.
try to, yeah, I'll just cut this whole thing in a nutshell, put this in a nutshell, that haiku, we know it as a 3-line poetry,
Yeah.
right? It's actually 3-line poetry, yes, but it's also two images juxtaposed. For example, let's say traffic snarl is one image. I miss the sound, I miss the music of estuaries. Okay, now estuaries are very silent. Estuary is a sangam. Okay, so I miss the sound of estuaries is one image. It's a sound haiku. Because we're talking of snarl, which if I just say traffic snarl, you're hearing it, right?
Yeah.
If you just immerse yourself, you're hearing the honk, the metallic crash, crank, whatever. And when I say I miss the song of estuaries, I'm talking of the sangam wherein you do not hear a sound. It's so silent between the sea and the river meeting that it's a sangam because it doesn't speak. It's the most silent. They in Bollywood they call it love making, sangam and all, but I feel it's the most silent merging. So in a traffic jam, I'm thinking of the quietest place I was in. Why? Because the protagonist, that is me as a poet, is thinking, Band karo ye shore, where was the quietest time I was in my life? And it was at the Sangam. And this is a real haiku. Like I've gone to a Sangam and thought of this in my beautiful Mumbai traffic jam. But these are the two images you're juxtaposing. Here it is sound, but sometimes you can have other elements. You can have light, you can have color. But basically, you're juxtaposing two images. So it's a very visual form of writing, haiku. Haibun, on the other hand, is prose lyrical poetry. Again, it could be story, it could be character, but it is talking about epiphanies in a visual lyrical way. Everything in the present tense, very close to diary writing or blogging, but in the present tense. You take one small epiphany. Like, did you have an epiphany today? Let me just ask you. Any epiphany?
Not really.
Personal, personal or professional? Any realization today? Dhasu realization. Or some days ago, anything you realized about human relationships, or I don't know, friendships or love or life, anything that you had, okay, that becomes an epiphany around which you narrate a small prose or lyrical poetry, which is called Haibun, and you put a little haiku there. And it's a very beautiful form of writing, because it allows you to be a storyteller and a poet at the same time. So you can't believe how crazy I went teaching this form. I taught it everywhere. I'm still teaching it at Himalayan Writing Retreat. We started by saying, let's see how one workshop goes. And 3 years down the line, I'm still teaching it. Because it allows the writer to be both a haibunia, a storyteller and a poet. And all you need to do is remember an epiphany, any realization you had in the day, in the week, in your life that you want to write around. Sometimes even bachpan. Go back down memory lane, only make it in the present tense. That's the only thing you need to do. Like you speaking about food, right? You speaking about family. So
Yeah.
one instance about family that you just make it in the present tense as if it's happening now, and you add a haiku, maybe a food haiku. There you go.
That
That
sounds really
yeah, and
fascinating.
yes,
Yeah.
and this was something that was started by Basho, the 17th century Zen Buddhist monk, who captured his travel writings and travel logs in lyrical prose, calling it the Haibun, and he put in a lot of haiku, and that's what it became. And then when the English world took it over, we had fun with it. Yeah.
Do you
It's a,
have
it's
any?
a nice, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
nice lyrical, free writing way of writing, almost free writing, very lyrical, very economical. Yeah, you want me to read one,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
share
yeah,
one?
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I can find it. Let me just check. Um, yeah, I'll definitely. But since we are going down memory lane or something, I'll take a childhood wala, bachpan wala schoolgirl haiku
Okay.
and haibun actually. But you can write around anything. Okay, so this is called a knot of toads. The corridor floors are of glazed maroon clay. The half day period bell is yet to trill. Every student is bent over their book as Gulnaz and I steal away. We haven't gone to class after the recess bell. We hide our bags in an old classroom near the school gates. Now we walk separately, as if we are on our way to the toilet. We cross the large ground with deserted footmarks of play, just from half an hour ago. We pull out our bags. There is a ladder over the wall. We climb it as if astride the horse of tree, then jump, quivering with joy. Walls are meant to be scaled, lines disturbed. But were we seen by somebody big or small? We rush into the next lane, a market, and slurp on syrupy slush and kulfi. We sit on a tiny tin shop and drink sugarcane juice, then buy betel nut leaves, letting it stain our lips. We hear the cyclic clinking of horse tanga wheels along the jangle of the sugarcane crushing machine. We look into the shop's window. It's time to get back. We join the parade out to the school gates. We bend our heads because our mouths are so red. The haiku: graffiti walls, no memories of a plain blue sky. Graffiti walls, no memories of a plain blue sky.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that is it. So if you ask me the dissection, the Haibun is just a school, two schoolgirls just run off school, do some shararat. This is actually small town. I think today they would not do that. They would be vaping. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in my days, having betel nut and just having sugarcane juice and running back with your school bag and joining the last line out was supposed to be fun. A fun day, like kisi ne dekha nahi humko. That kind of fun. And then you say the haiku, it joins it because it's talking of graffiti walls. So it's talking of beautiful chaos and anarchy. Okay. But no memory of a plain blue sky. Because maybe childhood was that masti bhara. So these are the images, but it is very imagistic.
Yeah.
You could almost be there because it's in present tense.
Yeah, it felt like I was going through those lanes along with the two
Yes.
kids. Yeah.
And that is because it is written in present
Yeah.
tense. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for reading it for us. Now let's play a fun game. We'll ask you some questions and you have to tell us your picks for each of these questions. So, ready to jump in? Okay. So, your favorite classic authors?
Classic would be, I don't know, Emily Dickinson. Let me put
Okay.
it that. William Trevor. Yeah.
Nice. Favorite contemporary authors? One you have already mentioned, but yeah.
Yes. Arundhati Roy and like Jhumpa Lahiri.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. Favorite books?
Favorite books, again, I think I mentioned The God of Small Things always and Kafka on the Show. And otherwise, too many, anthologies. Too
Oh,
many
okay.
anthologies. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I love short story anthologies, poetry anthologies. So I will like tire myself and you naming them. But many of them, many of them. Because I think an anthology is like a forest of bird song. You get a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Favorite movie or TV adaptations based on books?
Hmm. So I liked this one, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I like the
Mm-hmm.
way it was, in the book. And then I like the namesake also.
Oh, nice. That was such a nice movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I like the Harry Potter for the way they characterize, the
Mm-hmm.
characterization. I'm not a Harry Potter per se fan, but I like the characterization in how they did it. They
Yeah.
brought it to life.
Favorite bookshops?
So Fictionary in Bandra, have you been to it? So it's a nice
Yeah.
cozy little cafe with and in Bandra, Bombay.
Okay.
And so Fictionary and Dog Years, Margao, Goa.
Okay.
A very have you been to it?
I have not, but I'm noting it down.
Yeah. A very Fictionary and Dog Years, very cozy and very, like you don't want to get away fast from it. You're happy
Oh,
to be there.
yeah.
And I think Pagdandi in Pune, and one last I'll mention Atta Galata, Bangalore. Yeah.
Adaginata we have had previously also a previous author as well mentioned, and Pagdandi I've been to in Pune.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I've visited. It's very nice.
Yes.
Since you have talked about writers' retreat so much, so some of your favorite writers' retreats, like some places where you know.
So see, I've been to international, like two of them, Iowa's, which is really beautiful, and
Mhm.
it's almost like a planet, a literary planet away from everything. The UNESCO city of world literature, and Charles Wallace I was on, so I remember those retreats because of experiential. Otherwise, Himalayan writing retreat in India, Satkol, Uttarakhand, is another very beautiful place because
Oh,
it's in the
nice.
misty hills, and you can go there. You don't need to have tremendous application form filling and all that and
Yeah.
waiting for selections. You can, I think it's more accessible, and it's in India. Panchgani writers retreat is what I'm connected to. Like I'm going to Panchgani soon in October to teach. But I also must say that besides these international writing residencies, Indian writing residencies, new ones, old ones that keep coming up, I feel the best retreat is where you can lock yourself up in a clean room with a beautiful window view and just write and be. Because that brings us to the room of our own. And a room of our own is the biggest retreat you could ever have.
Yeah.
Yes, then there are formats wherein you get to meet interesting people after you've written your writing, and then you have literary conversations, and that might be your thing. Or even I had organized an art residency program a few years ago, wherein we would have readings by participating artists in various venues. So if you want to perform and that is your gig. But actually speaking, a retreat, if you boil it down to the core, is just having space of your own. And food. You don't want to be cooking for 3 hours. You just want some delicious food at the side when you're hungry, a neat, clean table or chair or whatever to write, and a beautiful window. And lock yourself up for a month, 3 months, I don't know, just to write. That's a retreat. That's the ultimate retreat. Then you could put
Also said
anything together.
by Virginia Woolf.
Yes, it's a Virginia Woolf retreat. Baki sub is of course different. On enterprising people will come up with new
Yeah.
formats and all that. That
Yeah.
will happen.
So, any new ideas or projects that you're working on currently or planning to work on?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on two books actually. One is a book that is nearly complete. It was supposed to be my first novel, but it's become my second novel.
Mhm.
It's called The Fabric Goddesses, and it's around about three women around the garment and fashion industry. So I think that book happened because I suddenly realized when I had gone to Singapore Literature Festival that I am actually an Asian. All the time I always thought I'm an Indian or I'm a brown woman in a white country, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
When I went to Singapore Literature Festival and listening to their panel discussion, suddenly I was like, hey, you know what? I am Asian. And I suddenly felt I have an Asian story, which are these three women, one in Dhaka, one in Bangalore, and one in New York. And they're connected by one brown coat that is stitched here, it's cut and made there, and it is bought there.
Mhm.
And I suddenly felt the sisterhood of the traveling coat, if you could call it that way.
Yeah.
And it was an Asian story.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that is going on. And I have a collection of a very automatic or by default collection of short stories that came about because there were so many anthologized stories of mine in different places. And when I said, let's collect it, it became a 300 pager. So I was like, wow, this is automatic. So there's an automatic book coming up. So two books. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Really excited for both of these to come out.
Thank you so much.
So you have been a mentor to the young minds for quite some time now. Any words of wisdom for the people who would be watching this, who are on their journey to become a writer?
Yeah, so I would just tell them one thing. Of course, I would tell them to invest in their craft, or know, or like know their voice, worldview, even if it's a changing world or a world always in flux. But I would definitely, tell them that write. You should love writing or creating so much that no matter what the obstacles, no matter which system is efficient, inefficient, broken, or complete, keep writing. Because if you love something, then you do it day in and day out. You do it come what may. So it can't be only you'll do it if you get this publication or that prize or that residency. It has to be done come hell or high water, come pandemic or lockdown, or real life, come whatever. You love it so much that you will do it in darkness and in light. And that is the kind of investment you should have in your craft and your art. Keep evolving.
Absolutely.
So nothing should come in the way there. Because sometimes we depend so much on external validation
Mhm.
that we forget to internally validate ourselves. To internally not be delulus, complete delulus, but to understand that we have the strength. We have those talents and boons and gifts. And to realize it, to have the gumption and conviction. Because I don't think gumption, grit, and conviction is taught to you anywhere, neither bought from somewhere. You only get it from inside, and you get it only when you self realize and you're self aware and you self discover. This is what you get, and this is the biggest boon you have, to believe in yourself, to believe in your art and craft. So that,
Yeah.
yeah,
And a little delusion helps, I think, as you're saying, because
yeah,
otherwise, if you're too conscious about whatever like everyone is thinking around you, it will be very difficult to.
absolutely, man. If I just read Emily Dickinson, I don't think I would ever write anything. I would be like, she said everything, what do I have to say?
So, Rochelle, as we are reaching towards the end of this podcast, we would love to hear you read your favorite extract or two from the book.
Okay. You know what I've done, Utkarsha? I've taken one of your paragraphs that you liked, and I'm going to read from there. Like from there, is that okay?
Yeah, lovely.
Because I felt so happy to read, the selections that you mentioned. I was like, yay, because that gives me a new interpretation of a reader. I really like it. I really like that, and you especially.
Glad to
Okay,
hear
so
it.
this one,
Yeah.
yes. So this one is from chapter 7 called Khari Biscuit and Tea. Before the 451-year colonial rule by the Portuguese, they had all been Hindus. The Desais, the Prabhus, the Bodkes, the Shenois. But now that they were Catholics in the Christian faith, celebrating Christmas and New Year and Easter and observing Lent and Ash Wednesdays and Good Fridays and praying through Angelus, Novenas, and Rosaries, their old religion was all but forgotten. After all, gods and religions were such anchorage, a pit to store your woebegone worries. an invisible, intangible support system, someone to confess to. And once that listening was done and the telling, it didn't matter which god or goddess heeded, as long as they did something about that plea or prayer. The same mindlessness was not ascribed to caste. That was never forgotten. Called an accident of birth if one was of a lower caste, or a privilege of birth if on a higher part of this pole, even the decosters were never allowed to forget their caste during tea time banter, even if it didn't have wider repercussions. The Anglo Indians too remembered their castes from their Indian parentage. But Rita loved to think of how Theodore was a mixed breed between his maternal Brahmin and paternal Kshatriya parentage, and how she, being Anglo Indian, was mixed up further into an Irish Gaelic bloodline in such a way that their daughter Seneca reflected all this in lustrous olive skin and green almond eyes, a jawline shaped in a European way. Oh, Rita was so proud of this last offspring of hers. Seneca had met Milind Rajadhyaksh, a company secretary, at her first job at a new office where she was interning as a chartered accountant. They hit it off like khari biscuit and tea. She liked the niceties he had on: good behavior in a plain blue work shirt that was so different from the rowdy boys at church. As for him, he liked that her skirts and dresses were always thigh length, yet she could cross and cross her legs in such a way that it never showed her innerwear. He discerned a practiced efficiency in that. Their commingling was quick, chummy, and gummy, with willing smiles, and before long, Seneca came home with the announcement to her mother that she wished to become a Hindu again and start practicing to live and think in Hindi and Marathi. She began executing recipes of Maharashtrian delicacies in the kitchen with generous helpings of kanda poa or sabudana vadas from the main breakfast that replaced the curry-leaved, oily egg ross omelets. The DeCosta family.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, Rochelle. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did.
Absolutely, Utkarsha. I so enjoy your lively, you are such a lively conversationalist and such a good reader. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
you. Yeah.